on to the third one. A resolution in support of legalizing medical marijuana in North Carolina. Therefore, be it resolved that the state of North Carolina grant doctors the right to prescribe medical marijuana in the same way they prescribe other drugs, and be it finally resolved that the state of North Carolina legalize the use of medical marijuana. The committee recommends adoption of this resolution.
Once again, the motion coming from committee, no second is required. Questions on the adoption of the resolution? Are you ready for the question? Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the resolution? Wishing to speak in favor of the resolution? Recognizing the gentleman. Actually, recognize the gentleman for time not to exceed 2 minutes.
I know this resolution may be a tough sell in this gathering, but I would like to just point out the reason that the medical marijuana has been passed in many of these states, and the sensible reason for it is that people who need access to it find it helpful for establishing an appetite with nausea. I remember my grandmother's boyfriend, when he got to a very advanced age, she would ask him, "Did you eat this morning?" And he didn't use marijuana. He was a World War II veteran. I don't think he was interested in it. But some people find it helpful. And I'm sure in some of these states, a lot of people vote for this because, hey, stoners can get, a prescription to go smoke. But it does help people. And I feel like it's, incumbent on people that subscribe to Republican philosophy that we don't need the power of the state telling the elderly, you don't have access to this. You have the right at the end of your life to decide how you want to live and to end your suffering, by establishing an appetite to reduce your nausea, your arthritis, anything of that effect.
Chair, thanks, gentlemen. Anyone wishing the floor to speak in opposition? Recognize the gentleman. Gentleman, please state his name and county residence.
Hal Short, Mecklenburg County.
Time not to exceed 2 minutes.
Okay, first of all, I don't believe that we can limit it. Once it's accepted, it'll soon be out in the general population. I don't think it's in the best interest of our country or of our state to have people's mental faculties adversely affected by the use of drugs. I understand that the marijuana that's available today is more potent than it was when I was in college back in the 60s. And I believe marijuana is also a gateway drug to harder drugs, to heroin, to cocaine. People start out with marijuana as the grade school of drugs, and then they go on more harder drugs. So I oppose this resolution.
Okay, thanks, gentlemen. Anyone wishing the floor to speak in support, recognizing the gentleman committee for time not to exceed 2 minutes.
The committee looked at all of those reasons for why this wouldn't be passed, and in many ways I agree with Mr. Short. However, this resolution is only for medical marijuana which would be prescribed by a doctor. This is not about allowing it out on the streets. We would not have allowed that to get through. The other thing is there are plenty of other drugs which are being prescribed today which really, psychotropic drugs that really screw with one's mind. Cannabis doesn't really do that. It's mild compared to a lot of these other drugs that are being prescribed by doctors. This resolution strictly limits it to being prescribed by doctors and being controlled the same way as other drugs, which are legal drugs, which are regulated. The committee would have never accepted any resolution which allowed for pure legalization of marijuana. Thank you.
Sure, thanks, gentlemen. Speakers wishing the floor in opposition to this resolution, recognizing someone who is not recognized Jill Lane. Can you state your name and county residence?
Catherine Davis, Ardell County. This motion personally applies to me. I've actually been in a car wreck, broke my neck and my back because of someone using marijuana. And I hear all the time that people say that this type of drug is not as harmful as others, not as harmful as this, not as harmful as that. It is something that is just, to me personally, outrageous that we would try to bring something like this to light.
Chair, thank you, gentlemen. This time the chair is going to exercise his authority under the rules, according to Rule 19B. If any contest shall develop over any matter other than the election of officers, the chairman of the convention, that's me, shall in his discretion allow each side an allotted time not to exceed 10 minutes to present his position. This time the chair is going to allot 5 minutes per side. Actually, the chair will allot 7 minutes per side, subtracting the time already used up by both sides, which means the affirmative side has slightly over 4 minutes. The negative side has slightly over 5 minutes. Recognizing anyone wishing to speak in favor of the resolution, recognizing the gentleman.
Scott Cianci, Mecklenburg County, Precinct 207. Today's a special day for me. Today is my mother's 71st birthday. I'm very, very happy to know that she's still with us, even though she couldn't make it here today, because she's a stage 4 cancer survivor. She was given not much hope, but after many surgeries, much chemotherapy, and all the normal medical attempts to help her, it still metastasized into her neck. She had C7 surgery. She's had all different kinds of surgeries trying to help her. She's at a stage right now where all modern medicine has basically done is given her even more pain and has not given her any relief. And she's, well, trying to make the best of a very rough day today, which is her birthday. I understand that there's always going to be a chance that somebody could get hurt as relations of something. Somebody drinks too much and is irresponsible. That's fine. Somebody smokes a marijuana cigarette and does something irresponsible. Those people need to be held accountable for their actions. But to blanket everyone and to not allow someone to have access to something that could help them just because of a few bad apples that don't know how to be responsible. Personally, that's a sin. To see my mother suffer and to know that there could be some relief from medicinal marijuana, not to mention tetrahydrocannabinol, has also been proven to cure cancer. So I just ask that the convention recommend that this passes. Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Recognizing speakers who wish to speak in opposition. Recognizing the gentleman.
Yeah, my name is Jeff Clark, Senator from the 44th District. Having a sister-in-law that has breast cancer, my father-in-law, or my grandfather had larynx cancer. One of the closest folks, personal friend in Sunday school, she passed away with lung cancer. Based on all the information that I've read both in JAMA and in the New England Medical Journal, and you look at the statistics around states that have legalized marijuana, it's abused. The majority, a third to half, is not for really medicinal purposes, it's for recreational purposes. And as my wife, who's a physician, has stated, and as the gentleman spoke earlier, there are acceptable legal alternatives that are already being subscribed. We don't need marijuana legalized for this purpose or in this manner.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Anyone wishing to speak in support who has not yet spoken? Anyone wishing to speak in support of the resolution who has not yet spoken? Recognize the gentleman.
Steve Swire, Mecklenburg County. I wish to speak in favor of this resolution, and the primary reason, besides the things that have already been talked about, is the side effects of a lot of these other drugs that are used in place of things like marijuana. My wife, as well, is a cancer survivor. Thankfully, it was caught early. She had ovarian cancer, and she went through chemotherapy, and thankfully she didn't have to have radiation treatments. But I know, and from the things that have happened in other states, just reading people's stories, that the severe effects that a lot of people have from not only specifically the cancer drugs, but a lot of these other drugs that are used to treat things that the medical marijuana can do a much better job of treating without the severe adverse side effects that come with these other drugs. Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Persons wishing to speak in opposition who have not yet spoken, recognizing the gentleman.
Donald Gulf from Iredell County. I've worked in law enforcement, and I know how hard the job law enforcement has now with marijuana. If we legalize it, you're making their job that much harder. They're going to have to you're gonna be making their job that much harder. You're gonna have these cards that are gonna be floating around that are getting into people's hands that first they're not intended for. There are alternatives to marijuana. I do not know whether or not marijuana works. So these others do. We're starting a slippery slope. You know, what if they come up, if we legalize marijuana? Well, now we need to do cocaine. If we give in now, we're going to have to give in then.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Anyone wishing the floor who is not yet
Cocaine
spoken
is
in this
used
matter,
medicinally
in
right now,
favor of the
actually.
resolution. In favor of the resolution, there is 1 minute, 55 seconds remaining on the affirmative side. Anyone wishing to speak in favor? Anyone who has spoken and wishes to speak a second time in favor? Recognize the gentleman. Time not to exceed a minute 55.
Just a comment. Cocaine is already used medicinally. Marijuana has never killed anyone. We have 0 side effects. What's the worst thing that happens if you smoke a marijuana cigarette? You're happy and you're hungry. How many times do you ask your doctor about something and you see on the television one after the next? Stroke, death, bleeding. I mean, it's just ridiculous the stuff that's put on the pharmacy. All we're asking is something that's no different than basil. This is a plant that grows. This is natural as God given us. And to live in fear of something and use a million excuses just to keep people that are suffering from having something that's 100% natural as a choice, who are we to say that no? Who are we to say no and deny that to someone who's suffering on their deathbed even? That's horrific, and I just wish you guys would pass this resolution.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Recognize the gentleman.
Tom Tillis, Mecklenburg County. To me, the problem has more to do with the content of the resolution. There's issues. There's no question if you talk to medical professionals in palliative care and in cancer research that there are documented benefits to this. But in other states, when they haven't been very tight, what it has done has led to a California, a Washington, a Colorado. I was just with a House member in Colorado on Monday talking about this issue. If we're going to proceed with this and not have it be just the step, the camel's nose under the tent to broad legalization, we have to have resolutions that are tighter in nature. And it's very important, I think, not to lay the groundwork to let this become another state that's legalized marijuana. That's why I oppose the resolution as it's currently worded.
Chair thanks the gentleman. 1 minute remains on the affirmative side. Does anyone wish to speak in favor of the resolution? Seeing none. 3.5 minutes remain on the negative side. Anyone wish to speak in opposition who has not yet spoken? Recognize the gentle lady.
Yes, I agree with Speaker Tillis on this. It's the wording of the resolution that bothers me the most. Medical use of marijuana is not just, the way it's written, it's not just for people who have cancer, but it's for people who might be mildly depressed. I can see that as a horse getting out of the barn door very quickly, and that's all I have to say about that.
Chair thanks the gentle lady. Anyone wishing to speak, the gentleman has exhausted his debate rights on this issue. No one may speak more than twice to any given issue under the rules. Recognizing the gentleman for the time not to exceed 1 minute.
Can I offer an amendment at this point?
The gentleman wishes to offer amendment, you may.
I would like to strike the last sentence, basically the be it finally resolved, and just say, be it finally resolved that the state of North Carolina establish a regulatory framework for medical marijuana.
Does the gentleman have that in writing?
No, I don't. I can quickly scratch it out.
Quickly as possible, gentlemen, please reduce that to writing. And the gentleman will please repeat his proposed amendment.
Okay.
Jim will please repeat his proposal.
Okay.
If it's in writing, the gentleman is proposing that we strike the second resolve clause and insert in its place, be it further resolved that the state of North Carolina establish a regulatory framework for the legalization of marijuana. We don't have time for this. The rules Be further resolved that the state of North Carolina establish a regulatory framework for the distribution of medical marijuana. Is there a second to the proposed resolution amendment?
Scott Chancellor, Mecklenburg County. I'd like to second that.
It is moved and seconded at this time. It's the opinion of the chair that in many ways the proposed amendment enters into the merits of the discussion itself. So the chair is going to limit debate to not more than 2 minutes per side. The first person allowed to speak to this amendment is the maker of the motion. And you have the floor for time not to exceed 2 minutes.
Okay, the point is well taken by the Speaker of the House. I do think that it's quite likely that the delegation in this room is not prepared to simply vote for anything that is worded legalizing marijuana. I do think, though, that there are people here who have relatives who have suffered, who feel that their relatives have the opportunity to have access to marijuana under controlled circumstances. And I do think ultimately, probably within another 10 or 20 years, the state legislature will establish a regulatory framework for the distribution. And that is why I voted the same.
Chair, thanks, gentlemen. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the proposed amendment? Recognizing the gentleman.
Rule 18, disclosure, no motion whatsoever shall be in order unless the maker thereof.
In the opinion of the chair, the gentleman has handed it to the chair in writing. So, opinion of the chair.
Did the person who made the motion state their name and county?
The chair does not recall, but in the opinion of the chair, a point of order must be raised in a timely fashion. The gentleman has already, the motion's been put, seconded, and is under debate. The chair will rule against that point of order at this time for lack of time. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the proposed amendment? Recognizing the gentleman in the back, Representative Horn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My concern with the proposed amendment is that the amendment appears to not take into consideration the first, therefore, be it resolved, which allows the prescription of medical marijuana in the same way as prescribing other drugs. So there appears to me to be some conflict, and as a consequence, I think that the entire proposal needs to be reconsidered.
Chair, thanks the gentleman. Further speakers who wish to speak in favor of the proposed amendment? In favor of the proposed amendment? Seeing none, anyone wishing to speak in opposition to the proposed amendment? In opposition, recognize the gentleman.
Bob Guns to Union County. Based on my review of this situation, if you look at California, Oregon, Colorado, there's absolutely no reason to think that the medical community can regulate this in any reasonable fashion. And the law enforcement argument is a very serious issue, so I would ask everybody to vote against this.
Chair, thanks the gentleman. Further speakers wishing to speak in favor of the proposed amendment? Recognize the gentleman. In favor of the proposed amendment?
No, I'd like to have this amendment, this resolution tabled.
Gentlemen,
John Screw, Precinct 206, Mecklenburg.
So the opinion of the chair, the gentleman means to move. The motion to table would be out of order at this time. The motion to table is a highly ranking motion that is only to be used in emergency sort of situation. The opinion of the chair, the gentleman probably wishes to postpone. The question is, does the gentleman wish to postpone definitely or indefinitely?
Yes, Chairman, postpone.
Would the gentleman wish to move to postpone definitely or indefinitely?
Indefinitely.
The motion is made to postpone indefinite discussion of the proposed amendment. The gentleman please restate his name for the secretary.
John Strew, Precinct 206.
Motion to postpone indefinitely basically is a parliamentary maneuver, parliamentary tactic that allows a body to deal with an issue by refusing to deal with it. It's typically employed when the feeling is either we weren't ready to do this or there's something potentially embarrassing about what's going on here. And so it allows, actually what it does technically is it allows the body to kill something without killing it. The effect is it goes away forever, but without going on record as voting against it. It does require 2/3 vote to postpone indefinitely. It does not, it's here, it's take a minute here. This would have, is there a parliamentarian for this commission, so you need time?
It is under Robert's Rule 61, it's just a majority vote.
Majority vote, okay. It is not debatable, however, as the chair recalls. So we'll move into immediate vote on the motion to postpone indefinitely the proposed amendment. Yes, sir. Recognize the gentleman.
Just a point of order, it is a debatable.
It is debatable, correct. And in fact, that is correct. It's debatable, and as I recall, then the debate can move into the merits of the question. Wow. This was this seconded?
No, sir.
The chair would hardly advise no one to second this motion for this reason. It allows more debate on something. It just actually triples the amount of time we're debating the exact same thing. If you wanted to go away, you really would rather the resolution go away probably than the amendment, and you just want to vote against the resolution in all likelihood. To do this opens up a whole other round of debate, gives everybody 2 more times. And so is there a second to the motion to postpone indefinitely? Seeing none, the motion fails for lack of a second. We return to a discussion on the proposed amendment to the resolution, and looking for someone who wishes to speak in favor. Recognize the gentleman.
I wish to...
Recognizing the gentleman.
Okay. I called the previous question.
The gentleman moves the previous question. The previous question is a motion to end debate and move into an immediate vote.
I think we all wanted that one.
It is not debatable. It does require a 2/3 vote. Is there a second for the motion to previous question?
Second.
What purpose does the gentleman rise?
I would point out I'm calling for the question on all matters on the floor.
The opinion of the chair, the question on the floor is in fact the amendment. And the question before the commission is the amendment. And so that is what the previous question would be ordered. All those in favor of ending debate and moving to immediate vote on the proposed amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The chair, the ayes have it. We'll move into an immediate vote on the proposed amendment. Those in favor of amending the resolution by striking the "be it finally resolved" clause and inserting in its place, this is amendment by substitution, be it further resolved that the state of North Carolina establish a regulatory framework for the distribution of medical marijuana. All those in favor of that amendment, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no.
No.
Then the chair, the ayes have it. The amendment fails. We return to a discussion of the resolution itself. Recognizing the gentleman.
Mecklenburg County, I'd like to call the question, please.
Once again, the motion is the previous question to end debate on the resolution to move into a vote. Is there a second to the motion previous question? All those in favor of ending debate on the resolution, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The chair, the ayes have it. We move into an immediate vote now on the resolution. All those in favor of a resolution in support of legalizing miracle. Now that might pass. Medical marijuana, married or not, in North Carolina, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No. The chair does have the resolution fails. We now move for further resolutions to the report. The chair once again recognizes